Hi, welcome back to Hydroponics Daily. Today, I thought I would do an episode on plant anatomy. And today's subject is stipules and bracts, which are often confused with flower parts. So the reason for this is that bracts are actually leaves. They're specialized leaves, though, associated with flowers. So they might be green or they might be colourful. So if you a great example is bougainvillaea, the purple flower, the purple vine that you see in Mediterranean climates. I've got one in my greenhouse, and it produces tiny white flowers that are surrounded by big purple leaves that might be confused for flower petals. However, they're not petals because they contain the same structures that a leaf would. So they've got a petiole, which is a leaf stalk. They've got a midrib, which is the main vein going up the centre. And crucially, they'll have stomata in their epidermis for gas exchange. And they'll probably do some photosynthesis as well, which you really couldn't rely on a petal for. Other examples of plants where the most showy part of the plant is a bract is dogwood. That's another one. And lots of euphorbias. In fact, most euphorbias, including poinsettia, which is very important economically for ornamental horticulture, especially in the winter and at Christmas. So poinsettias are what you buy at Christmas, and also now increasingly the orange ones during Halloween. So there you are buying them for their showy bracts, and that's important because the reason it's important that they're bracts and economically important is that because they've got this leaf stalk, they've got at the end of the leaf stalk is something called the abscission zone. And if you stress euphorbias and poinsettias, they will release ethylene at this abscission point and the leaf will just fall off. That's what abscission is, just the leaves falling off. It won't senesce. And so if you flood a poinsettia, all the colourful, showy red leaves or pink leaves or orange leaves will fall off. If you take them outside in your car from the supermarket to your car and it's too cold, they'll get stressed and the bracts will fall off. If you drop them on the floor, the bracts will fall off. I once went to a talk by a German poinsettia breeder, and it was hilarious because all the tests were named like typical German names. So like they would test whether the plant was robust enough to withstand dropping, and the test was called the Planthen test, and it was like really logical names. The Planthen test, and they would score the plants from 1 to 10 on how resilient they were for their bracts falling off. So other plants where bracts are important are bananas and cannabis and hops. In hops, the bracts are the tiny little leaves that surround the female ovaries and the glands that produce the wonderful scents and terpenes of a hop. Hops just smell absolutely delicious to me, and the bracts are what keep it healthy and stop pests and disease from getting in and things like this, and hopefully, keep it looking good. The bracts are also the first things to turn brown when the weather's bad. So, we've had talks with our hop growers, and they've said that when they apply our seaweed extracts and humic acids and fertilizers and things like that, the bracts stayed yet green, and they were able to take them to the show and win awards. Whereas their competitors, all their bracts had turned brown, so the leaves wouldn't have turned brown, the ovaries inside wouldn't have turned brown, and again in other plants, the bracts are very important. So in other plants like cannabis, the bracts contain lots of the trichomes. It's not just the reproductive organs, and the same for what we'll move on to, and that is the stipules. So stipules are not leaves; they are growths. They're normally green in colour, but they can vary, and they're at the base of the leaf stalk, at the base of the petiole, and so they might be like look like a tiny little leaf or a scale, and often look there, or so. Stipules are strange, and they have a number of different uses in plants, and they might not be obvious to you what that use is. So it depends on the plant. So like in a euphorbia, a lot of euphorbias look like cacti. So we said about poinsettias as a type of euphorbia, but in Africa there are a lot of euphorbias that look like cacti. And there, the spine is a stipule. Other stipules, like in roses, they just look like a little bit of leaf on the end. In the oil crop jatropha, which is very common in India and other tropical places where it's very dry, the stipules are actually like glandular hairs. So not trichomes, because they're much bigger than this. And then in a lot of tree species, broadleaf tree species, the stipule acts as almost like a covering to protect the developing young leaf. So some stipules may be present when the leaf is developing and then fall off, other leaves when it's growing out, and then a lot of stipules just stay on for the whole of the time the plant is alive. So for like some stipules, like those in, say, cannabis, it's thought that they have a protective mechanism because they've got trichomes on them, so they are protecting the young developing flower bud from attack by pests. And then in others, like the euphorbia, they're a spike, so they're obviously protecting it from attack by insects but more commonly mammals and birds and things like that. They might want to eat it. And then, as I said, the glandular ones might be feeding beneficial organisms. However, the function might not be known. And so you might find like a rose stipule, who knows what function that has. It might be just a bit of additional photosynthesis. It might be, obviously, as we said, protecting the young leaf from as it developed, and then photosynthesis later on. It's difficult to say, and if there isn't an obvious reason for the stipule, you might say that it's vestigial, just like the appendix in the human body was thought to be vestigial because no one could understand a reason for humans having it. And so if botanists said that there was no use for it, say it's vestigial, it's an evolutionary hangover. But now we know that the appendix in the human body is a really good source of beneficial bacteria. It stores the beneficial bacteria in our gut when we have an episode, like imagine you drank a load of whiskey and you killed off all the bugs in your stomach, and then you had a load of antibiotics and killed off all the bugs in your stomach. You need those beneficial bacteria back. And then because the appendix was well out of the way of all that whiskey and antibiotics, you can repopulate with the microbes. So people didn't understand the benefits of the microbiome until very, very recently. We still don't know all the benefits. And so just because we don't know a reason for, say, plants having stipules in certain species, doesn't mean they don't have a evolutionary advantage. So the word vestigial is a bit old hat nowadays. I think in peas and beans, the stipule is like the tendril as well that helps them climb up the vines. So obviously that's a very important function that stipule is undertaking. So that's been Hydroponics Daily for today. The importance of bracts and stipules. Certainly in many crops, they're very important. Any resinous crops, they're going to be having lots of trichomes on them. Tendrils for climbing plants. The stipules will be protecting plants, the newly developed leaves, from attack and from damage. And the bracts of many plants are actually what we grow them for, the ornamental value. So certainly my bougainvillaeas and my poinsettias at Christmas. So thank you very much for listening to Hydroponics Daily for today. If it's your first time listening, please smash that follow button so you get every single episode as soon as it's launched every day of 2025. Let's see how many episodes I can do. Currently well over 120 now, so it's looking good for the rest of the year. Thank you very much. Goodbye.